Mary's dad stood up with evil in his eyes and veins popping out of his neck. He charged at me full speed and punched me right in the face. I fell to the ground and hit my head on the corner of the table, and I started gushing blood from both my nose and my head. Hi, I'm Jack. It had been almost a year since I first started dating Mary, and things were going amazing. I was starting to get a little bit older and had seen all of my peers get married around me while I remained the single one, and I was tired of it. Mary was much younger than me, but she had made it clear that she was also ready for a serious relationship, and we both had talked about the possibility of getting married one day soon. With this being said, we decided it was time to meet each other's parents. My parents are extremely kind and loving and accepted her with open arms, but almost the exact opposite could be said about her parents. She had told me growing up that her father was extremely strict, but he loved her more than anything. He would always act very nasty towards her boyfriends and seemed like he wanted her to be his little girl forever, which rubbed me the wrong way if I'm being honest. I mean, I understand being close with your daughter, but why would you be so against her growing up and being an adult? It seemed pretty weird to me, but whatever. Despite these harrowing stories, I was excited to go meet my potential wife's parents. When we arrived, I got this really nervous feeling in my stomach, which told me something might go terribly wrong. I ignored this feeling and chalked it up to nerves. When we stepped inside, her dad glared at me with rage in his eyes. It was extremely awkward, because he didn't even introduce himself or anything. He just started glaring at me. My girlfriend Mary broke the awkward silence by introducing me to her parents.
Mom, Dad, this is Jack. He's a teacher and he's amazing.
Oh, well, isn't that wonderful?
Teacher? He's a teacher? So he's basically poor. Teachers make no money at all. How is he going to support you? This insensitive comment didn't bother me much, but it told me all I needed to know about Mary's father. It was clear he was extremely greedy, and he didn't care about making a positive change in the world, which is why I was becoming a teacher. I decided to move on, and we continued on with our visit. Eventually, I caught her dad glaring at me again, and could tell he was about to grill me with a question. So, Jack, tell me, what are your intentions with my daughter? Well, I happen to love your daughter very much, and I even see us potentially tying the knot one day. You raised a wonderfully beautiful woman, and I'm honored to say I get to be with her. What? You're planning on taking my only daughter away from me? You can't do that. She's mine forever. It was like he snapped. Mary's dad stood up with evil in his eyes and veins popping out of his neck. He charged at me full speed and punched me right in the face. I fell to the ground and hit my head on the corner of the table, and I started gushing blood from both my nose and my head. As I lay there in a daze, Mary wandered over and barely even seemed to care or even be surprised.
Oh, are you okay? Looks like you took quite a fall. My dad loses his temper sometimes, you understand, don't you?
Are you serious? Just get me the heck out of here. I was seriously injured from being attacked, and I barely was able to walk out of their place on my own. I drove home with Mary in silence because I was furious at how she handled the situation. After I cleaned myself up, I was still feeling extremely dizzy and disoriented, but I decided to confront Mary. What was that back there? You totally flaked on me. You should have had my back. I mean, your dad is crazy.
Well, you have to understand, I'm his little girl. He's just protective, that's all. He was just trying to be a good dad.
A good dad? Are you kidding me? He almost killed me, and I probably have a concussion at the very least. I'm filing a police report for this.
What? Are you that much of a wimp that you can't take a little beating?
At that, I stormed out and away from Macy, because she was talking crazy. I checked myself into the hospital to see what was wrong with my head and my nose, since they still throbbed like the beating had just happened. The doctors revealed to me that not only was I concussed, I had minor brain damage and my nose was broken. I was infuriated. I wasn't going to let him get away with this. I had to file a police report. I recalled Mary telling me that her dad was some big-time lawyer and that he relied heavily on his public image to get clients. I decided that I would seek my revenge in ruining his practice. First, I went to the police station and filed a report, and brought my medical evidence as proof as well. The police told me my best course of action would be to sue Mary's father for the beating, since there was nobody who would help testify against him. I hired the best lawyer in my town, and we began working together to bring justice to that evil man. My lawyer spent a couple of days following Mary's father around, and he discovered that he had some dark secrets of his own. It turns out that Mary's father's bad temper wasn't only towards Mary's love interests, but to Mary's own mother as well. Every night, Mary's father would beat Mary's mother for no reason at all. My lawyer successfully got picture evidence of this abuse, and we stored it safely away. Finally, it was time to come after Mary's father hard. In the courtroom, my lawyer presented the evidence to the judge, and we ended up winning the case. Mary's father was forced to pay $100,000 to me for my suffering, which more than covered the expenses of the hospital bill.
Well, I can see you are a weak little man who had to resort to suing me, huh?
Don't get too comfortable. I'm not even close to being done. I got permanent brain damage from your beating, you know that? I'm going to burn you to the ground.
I'd like to see you try.
The very next day, I began tracking down each and every one of Mary's father's clients, and one by one, I sent the evidence of his abuse to them. They were all disgusted with their lawyer's actions, and they fired him immediately. It was at this point that I heard from Mary for the first time in a couple of days. She showed up to my door and was furious.
Are you kidding me? You sued my dad and made him lose a bunch of clients? I thought we could work past this.
Absolutely not, Mary. You didn't support me when I needed it the most. Me and you are finished. Now get the heck out of my life. But first, I have something I think you might want to see. I showed Mary the picture proof of her father abusing her mother, and she broke down into tears. Her attitude suddenly completely changed about her dad, and even apologized and asked to get back together, to which I politely declined. I believe she showed her true colors that day, and I didn't want anything to do with her. Even now that Mary was gone for good, I still didn't feel completely satisfied. I decided that the only thing left for me to do would be to release the proof of his abuse to the internet and let them deal with it. I posted the picture evidence along with my entire story, and it went completely viral. It got almost 1 million hits in only one day, and people were furious. One of the furious people happened to work for the state, and saw to it that Mary's father would be disbarred, meaning he would never be allowed to work as a lawyer ever again. Afterwards, angry internet trolls leaked his address, and people began vandalizing his house, which he could not repair because he had no money from being sued, and was not making any new money because he no longer had a job. Because his house was pretty much destroyed, he was forced to move to a tiny apartment with a bug infestation and barely had enough money to feed himself and Mary's mother. But finally, it was at this point when Mary's mother gathered up the courage to leave her abusive husband, and she left to start a new life and meet new people who would treat her right. As Mary's father began to starve, he tried to steal from a local grocery store, where he was caught and brought to jail. When the judge saw he was an abusive man, he decided not to give him a second chance and sentenced him to 2 years in prison for shoplifting. I've heard that Mary no longer speaks to her father at all, but now has an amazing relationship with her mother as they heal from their abusive father. I can't say I feel too bad for Mary's father, since I have no remorse for a scumbag who hits women. But what do you think? Do you think I went too far?